Part 4 of the Dragon Lore. Dragons Speak. The Language of Dragons. Let's get started. As I'm sure you're all aware, the dragons speak their own unique language. However, the words in this language are merely a supplementary shell that is used to contain the telepathic projections of their thoughts and desires. Yes, when you speak to a dragon, you will understand the words, but this is because the dragon is forcing your mind to understand it. Alphanerd was quite surprised.
By the 12. Mine ears hear the tongue of dragons, yet the meaning rings clear within my mind. How can that be?
I'll be explaining that now. So, Dragon Speak was created by the First Brood, and was, and is still, used by them to communicate with each other, as well as with all other sentient beings. When they speak, this language is actually more of just a container, in a sense. It is used to get the will of the dragon inside the mind of the thing they are trying to communicate with. But, a quick prefix before we go over the language and its components, and that is the importance of dragon in-jokes. Well, they're not really in-jokes, but it kinda gets the message across. Dragon Speak works best when the dragons using it know each other really well. Kinda like how the First Brood knew each other really well when they created this language. And knowing each other so well, they can almost guess what their speaking partner is going to say before they even say it. All of this means that when a dragon uses a certain word, it can have another extra meaning, but only when that specific dragon says that specific phrase or word to another specific dragon. If this word or phrase is said to any other dragon or is said by any other dragon, it can mean something completely different. Or it could just be complete gibberish. This language is the ultimate reading between the lines. Another weird part of the language is that it doesn't change anymore. It has been refined so much by the First Brood that it is finished changing. Yet, even so, it is stupidly complex. And this complexity is nearly entirely because of how important these in-jokes are. All of this results in a kinda funny paradox. Even though the language has been refined to the point where it doesn't change and evolve anymore, there are so many in-jokes and in-phrases that it becomes near impossible to learn, even for a dragon who has, as far as we know, an infinite lifespan that they can use to learn it. So what hope do we have in learning this language when a dragon who has lived for only 1,000 years struggle to grasp it? But we're still gonna try, because it's fun. Even though their language is but a shell, it still has grammatical rules and features that are required to successfully and effectively transfer their projection. There are 4 components of the language we're gonna have to go over. Component 1. Life and the absence of life. This is something entirely unique to Dragon Speak. To the dragons, most words represent the concept of either containing life or the absence of life. Note, not necessarily death, just not having life. So words that contain life are things like dragon, dran, woman, hern, man, ern, and born, orn. You've probably noticed that I've been bracketing the N. This is because it's not actually the normal N sound. It's this low frequency nasal sound, which I admit I always thought that's just what N sounds like anyway. It is a dental alveolar nasal sound. Yes, I took Linguistics 101. Words that have an absence of life contain a different sound. Examples being bring, tom, escape, isk, war, war, dragoon, dra, or. By the way, as an aside, I found this really neat. Did you notice what dragoon is in dragon speak? It's dragon and born, except now it is void of life. I don't know, I thought that was pretty neat. Yes, I'm a nerd. This H sound is best described as a wispy, breathy sound that is similar to someone very lightly clearing their throat. By the way, the normal N and H sounds do exist in dragon speak. It is only when they are bracketed like this do they get their unique sound. However, because things can't be simple ever, things that have life doesn't actually mean it is a living thing. The best example for this is morn, a word I'm pretty sure everyone has seen a few times. It means death or kill. This is because to the dragons, death is a part of life, and it would not exist without life. Component 2. Tenses. Screw past tense, we've been here forever, is what I believe the first brood were thinking when they decided to remove past tense from their language. So, because of the practically ever-living nature of the first brood, the language doesn't distinguish between the past and the present tense. Well, at least it's impossible for us to distinguish it without the dragon's will behind it. The words are quite literally 100% the same, and it is only possible to know a difference when it is said by a dragon. The future tense does have a noticeable distinction though. It's still the exact same word with the past and present tense, but it has a very slightly hissing sound at the very front of the word. For example, ate, eat, and will eat is is, and sis. Future tense is shown with a bracketed s. So why is there no difference between past and present tense? Because of how dragons view time. The dragons do not see the present like we do. To them, there really is no such thing as the present. What we are living in the current time is actually just the result and accumulation of all things that happened in the past. What happened then caused what is happening now. The past isn't a disconnected, distant event to them. It is essential to understanding what is happening now. Moving on, component 3, the actual sentence structure. Bet you didn't think I'd be teaching you sentence structure in a video about a video game. In the Eorzean common tongue, when you're playing on English in the very least, we speak subject, verb, object. That means person or thing doing action, action, the receiver of the action. Dragon speak is verb, object, subject. So in Eorzean we could say the dragon ate the lalafell. The dragon speak equivalent of the sentence would be ate lalafell dragon. Why? Well, because language is what I want to say. But this is dragons. The first brood formed their language in this form because of their culture. The sentences are formed in the order of what is relatively most important in dragon culture. Actions taken being the most important. Bugger me, there's more. Adjectives and adverbs. We place them before the modified words, like the hungry dragon slowly ate the delicious lalafell. Dragons place them after the words they modify. So, ate slowly, lalafell delicious, dragon hungry. Simple enough. You've probably also noticed articles are missing. Articles being the, a, an, and so on. This is because dragons see these as pointless. They bring near nothing to a sentence in a way that is relevant to meaning. Thus, to a dragon, they really don't see them as having a purpose. And done. Wow, yeah, that's dragon speak. If you want to try your hand at making your own dragon sentences for whatever reason, a link to a dictionary of known dragon speak words is in the description below. So now, how are dragons named? Well, Midgardsormr and the first brood are all named after different dragons or beings in real-world mythology. Midgardsormr, Bahamut, and Tiamat were probably named after reoccurring dragon characters that show up in the Final Fantasy series. But the names originated from Norse mythology, Jormungandr for Midgardsormr, Arabic mythology for Bahamut, and ancient Mesopotamian mythology for Tiamat. The three great worms that are important characters in the Heavensward story, Nidhogg, Hreisvalgar, and Ratatoskr, are all named from Norse mythology. Hreisvalgar being a giant eagle that sits on top of the world tree, Nidhogg being the sneaky snake that sits within the roots of the world tree, and Ratatoskr being the messenger squirrel that constantly runs up and down the world tree carrying messages between the two. The other two great worms of the first brood, Adajar is from the Baltic dragon mythology, whereas Vitra is a dragon from Hinduism. Some of the other main cast dragons, like Vedofnir, Vedfolnir, are two different translations of the original Norse. This is a hawk that sits between the eyes of the great eagle Hreisvalgar, which I thought was pretty neat, since they are his children. The rest of the dragons, though, they're nicknames given to them by mortal races. Yes, people would name the dragons and it would just stick. However, we know that the younger dragons weren't named by mortals, but by fellow dragons, and their names appear to be given to them through either the circumstances of their birth or through a specific trait they have. Orn Kai is a dragonet from the Stormblood Dragoon story, his name translating to one born of sadness. Ol Dare is a dragon from the Mughal beast tribe. His name translates to one with a deep call or roar. El Tu is a custom deliveries dragon. Her name directly translates to one who is beyond eager. But yeah, that's pretty much all we know about dragon language so far. It's pretty dense in info. So let's end this off with a few fun stuff on your map you've probably didn't even think about, but it has some fun lore connected to the dragons. There's Witch Drop in Central Corfas. Those accused of heresy
under Ishgardian law are sometimes made to answer to a higher power, and thus they're quite literally thrown into a giant gorge. If they are deemed innocent by Halone, their death will be quick as they smack the bottom and die. However, if the accused is indeed guilty of consorting with dragons, then surely the fiend would spread their wings and try to fly out of the gorge. This is why we have all these archers ready to shoot them when they do. It's a fun little twist on the medieval witch water tests. The Dreaming Dragon in the Corfus Western Highlands. This appears to be a really nice looking statue, but it isn't a statue, or at least it wasn't back before year 1058. This year was actually a living dragon that was subdued by the then Azure Dragoon of Ishgard. This dragoon was aided by a contingent of mages, where I think they constantly chain casted sleep on the dragon. Back then the effect must have stacked, because it kept the dragon asleep forever. Ash started to cover the dragon and eventually enveloped its entire body as it slept, and it turned to stone. Thus, we have the Dreaming Dragon statue. That is the bulk of dragon lore we know from Final Fantasy XIV. I hope you enjoyed and you learned some stuffs. But for now, goodbye my friends, and have a great day.
Bum, bum, bum.